Hello, and welcome to Ask the Right Questions. I am Slim, and over there is Race,
Hello.
and this is the show where two eldritch aged men yell into the abyss for around an hour.
Yep, every week. Mostly every week.
It's been every week lately. It was a month you took off while you were trying to escape hell.
Mhm.
You were actually
So,
running from your own horrors.
it sounds more dramatic than it actually is.
It was very dramatic. He
Speaking of people running away from horrors, James. Conspiracy theories.
today's question.
Yes.
Why should people not be closed-minded to conspiracy theories?
All right. So let's talk about how this came about. I was listening to the Alex Jones Joe Rogan podcast, the second one. It's amazing. Everyone should go listen to it, even if you don't believe in conspiracy theories at all and you hate them. We're going to try to change your mind, but it's extremely entertaining and funny and interesting. So I highly recommend it. He was talking about Sandy Hook and how the media slandered him with almost like he's like responsible for uh, harassment against the parents, um, and all the media does is attack him with the Sandy Hook hoax, I guess you could call it, um, or him saying it's a hoax. He said that he covered it. His listeners were telling him to cover it. He starts looking at the evidence. He sees some anomalies. Later on, he starts to look at it more closely and sees that some of these are just mistakes. That people are just um, some of them are explainable. Like some stuff looks weird, but it's all explainable. It doesn't mean that the whole thing is faked, as some of the conspiracy guys are saying. So he stopped covering it. He stopped talking about it. And I had, for the longest time, I did believe it was a hoax. Um, I'm almost afraid to say that on the show because instantly I imagine people having negative reactions, like actually being mad at me that I actually considered that. Because we're talking about kids dying, and why would you say the parents are lying? And I understand it, but it's a completely emotional argument. I found a channel. No, oh, I had seen a documentary called "We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook," and it might be good for everyone to, even if there's no chance you're going to believe it, because I don't believe it anymore either. But go see it just to see how people can manipulate footage and manipulate things. It's almost 3 hours long, and after watching, I was like, wow, I was convinced that Sandy Hooks was a hoax. That was completely made up. And whether it's a hoax or not, the media manipulates it into arguments for gun control. Anyways, I found a YouTube channel called Sandy Hook Facts, and they were debunking all the claims from these conspiracy theorists and some of them from this documentary. And slowly the dominoes started to fall for me. It's like, okay, well, they were manipulating evidence and lying here. They were lying here. What else are they lying about? And I'm talking about the people I usually believe, right? Like the some of the radio hosts who get into 9/11 being an inside job and all that. Um, Now there's still weird footage. There's still weird things about Sandy Hook that I'm not 100% sure on, but I'm not going to say that's completely faked. And I don't believe all the stuff I used to believe about it.
Well, people definitely died.
People definitely died, of course, yeah. The claims from a lot of those guys were that the school was shut down for months beforehand. That's not true. they said there's no evidence that the school was open for that long. That's not true. This Sandy Hook Facts channel has videos of the school beforehand, lunch being made on the day of the shooting, pictures of the kids in their class, death certificates for the kids. There's a thing like the one of the police vehicles is filming the parking lot, the police cam, and there's a timestamp for all the events of the shooting. When you go to the video, there's nothing happening on there. Where like it will say, okay, this person runs across the parking lot at 10:24, and nothing happens on 10:24. But well, apparently there's something wrong with the dash cam, and there's a like 1 minute discrepancy between the times that are on the official report. So you adjust it, and you get the cops running by, and you get redacted, get just a blank screen or something. But so the video did match the report, and I don't know whether the hoaxers were just like the conspiracy people are like too stupid to get that, or they just completely lied about it. So if like a few things are false in that documentary, probably most of the things are false in there. So again, I haven't had it fully debunked for me, but I'm not. It's not a hill I'm going to die on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If I had gotten that years ago, I would have stopped believing it years ago. The only thing I got from the other side was, how could you believe that? You're a monster for believing that. You don't like.
It was
how
all
could you
just
say the
emotional
parents are lying?
arguments. It was all just emotional arguments.
Yeah. And when it's about kids, it's even more emotionally charged. I find that unbelievably frustrating, because that's not looking for the truth. That's not looking at evidence. That's not looking at the claims of what we're saying. That's just, I'm like, I want to be so horrible or stupid to believe that. It's like an intellectual, moral insult on the person. It's a slander against the person, rather than actually.
It's a logical fallacy.
It is a logical fallacy, yes. So I've been really mad about that this week. Ever since this happened.
It's not fun to believe those kind of conspiracy theories.
It's not fun.
The kind of conspiracy theories that are fun is like Area 51, maybe. Pop culture kind of conspiracies. But it's not fun to believe, Sandy Hook or 9/11, or those kind of conspiracies aren't fun to believe in.
The Boston bombing.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, when you believe in them, they feel like sad realities. It's not fun to believe in them. It's not even fun to research them.
Right. It's not fun to research them at all. I mean, and there's stuff about the Boston bombing, and that maybe people are just looking too much into it. Maybe people are making connections that weren't there. Until there's like an official new investigation on some of these things, we don't know. There's so much we don't know.
And
especially when it comes to 9/11, which I've studied just for years and years and years.
I don't even know how you would find a nonpartisan investigation team for that stuff. You can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, me either. I mean, I know a lot of the Sandy Hook stuff was sealed. Like a lot of the documents were sealed.
Well,
as far as I know.
A lot of times that stuff is sealed because it's minors. Investigations like that. Which I think is understandable.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's Well, the government hides a lot of stuff that they shouldn't hide.
Well, they do, yeah.
Yeah.
They do.
But yeah, and so I'm not gonna be happy with just that makes me feel uncomfortable, so I don't want to believe it. I'm not even gonna look into it. I really want to know the truth of what happened. And I don't think that makes me bad to want to know the truth about something. I don't think that makes me bad to want an anomaly to be explained. And it's really bothered me all these years. Like emotionally, it's bothered me that like people consider you like evil or stupid for asking questions. It's caused me a lot of emotional distress over the years for even wanting to like advocate about it and online. But even when I'm in a group of people, like I feel like I want to say something and I know it'll just cause an explosion. Everyone will get mad at me and not want me around anymore, you know. But it's like important for me to want to talk about. So that's what I want to talk about on the show. We tried we were having trouble forming it into like a question. Like this is the best we came up with. Like, because the other question was, why do people react negatively to conspiracy theories? And that answer is obvious. It's too uncomfortable to even want to look into some of this stuff.
Well, the word itself has been tainted. That's why the whole conspiracy facts thing started.
Mm-hmm. Because a conspiracy itself is pretty simple. It's just people conspiring.
Exactly.
I mean, and that happens on, that happens on Survivor and Big Brother and reality TV shows, and people conspire all the time.
Well, I mean, people can conspire at your work.
Yeah.
It could be small. It doesn't have to be on the government scale.
Right.
Or international scale.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know where to go from here. I get out my frustrations.
That's why I'm saying it wasn't quite a question.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, I don't think it's good for people to be closed-minded in general.
What about well, I guess touching on something else. I've always had respect for David Icke because he will say whatever he feels. Whatever he feels is true. He'll say.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that, even if he can contradict himself a bit sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk. Well, why don't we go through like a list of conspiracy theories that we believed in? Like, what's your experience believing them? Because I think was I the first one to introduce you to some of those? I remember when I found Alex Jones.
Well, I don't know about the very idea of it. You were the first one to present me with any kind of evidence to get me interested. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I probably heard at some point about a conspiracy. I mean, I'm sure we did throughout our lives. The New World Order one is, of course, the biggest one.
Right.
That's still a conspiracy somehow, even though it's very public at this point, I would say.
They're public about it amongst themselves, but not to like the general public. I think one of the arguments against conspiracies I hate is that you could never hide something that big. They don't hide it.
Well, wanting to establish a world government, I mean, you can find all kinds of quotes from people high up in the governments about it.
You can also read.
Even Obama mentioned it, casually, in some of his speeches.
Yeah, and then you can go read the Georgia Guidestone, and it says they want the world population under 500,000 people. How do you get to that goal when there's 7 billion people on the planet?
Well, you're not gonna get to that goal in any nice ways.
Yeah, exactly.
In a natural way, I don't know what's the word you want to use. You're not going to get there in an organic way.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, some of them are fun to believe in, like the flat Earth stuff recently. That's a whole conspiracy with NASA.
That one was fun to research. I don't believe it. I can't say I
No.
believe it. I don't. That one was fun to research. I don't know. Is Bigfoot a conspiracy?
Crypt.
Nessie, cryptozoology.
Uh,
I do very much have interest in cryptozoology.
yeah.
It's very fun stuff to explore.
Well, I've always been interested in aliens and cryptozoology stuff. I always watched that stuff on TV. I got alien books where they talked about Men in Black, visiting people.
Aliens
And
are aliens are considered a conspiracy because it would be the government covering it up.
yeah, and then stuff like Area 51 where they're
But that kind of stuff isn't really frowned upon to believe in because it's pop culture.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not super relevant to your life.
No. The stuff that is frowned upon to believe in has to do with government.
Well, yeah. And that's people having an unhealthy relationship with the authority of government and that appeal to authority argument where it's like the government wouldn't lie to me because I understand like there's a I can understand you can have like a freak out moment in your head, like a cognitive dissonance without even realizing it, where it's like the biggest reason I'm educated and I believe things about the world is because authority figures told me that these things were true. Um, whether it's your teacher in school, or just I don't know, just any government person, any president, congressman. It's assumed that the government is going to protect you and keep things in order, and they know what they're doing, and the military people know what they're doing. When that starts to break down, then chaos is the only other thing. You not being safe is the logical conclusion because you're looking to the government to handle everything. And so when when you're presented with the idea that they're not handling things well or they're keeping things from you, things you need to know, then I think there's like a freak out moment that happens in people's brains and they resort to the name calling, making fun of you just to like make it easier on their minds. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's shaking it off. It's hand waving it away.
Mm-hmm.
I think the easiest one to touch on is just the New World Order because government is getting bigger.
Well, yeah.
With the EU, the oh, I don't know. My mind just went blank.
Well, they're not letting Britain leave.
Well, in the UN. Well,
Yeah.
Brexit. I don't know. A few days ago, they were saying it's going to happen in a couple months. Though it's probably been happening a couple months from now for years. But
yeah. Well, they haven't made the process easy.
but there's the UN. There's the EU. I mean, government is getting bigger in general, even within your own borders.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere, government gets bigger.
No, you can deep dive into the occult, the UN's connections to the occult and communism.
Well, in the most simple way, a one world government is happening very slowly. It is.
Yeah.
Governments get bigger, and then there's the UN. I mean, that's a pretty simple way to put it, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a way of it happening, very organically.
When I saw Alex Jones' documentary Endgame, and he explained the Bilderberg Group and what it was, it's not that there's a special group of people planning absolutely everything. It's that the most powerful people in the world with the most money and the most influence and the most political influence are meeting in secret, and then they steer the world in a certain direction. So they're given an agenda of what they're going to do, and but they don't exactly like they're still independent, kind of moving together as a group in like kind of vague directions. Um, and that made perfect sense to me. Like I don't that's not
Yeah, it's not a bunch of it's not a bunch of people sitting in a dark room talking about it.
yeah, that's the straw man of it. That's the straw man argument where you're simplifying, oh, you mean that there's a group of people controlling absolutely everything and determining everything that happens and controlling everything we see. No,
Well, it's
there's,
people with power who want more power,
yeah,
and why wouldn't they? It's their job. I mean, it makes them money.
and it's corporations and government. It's not just the power of the state.
A lot of times, the same people.
It's the
Well, I mean, the people own a stake in the company or whatever. I mean, it's as simple as wanting to make more money and have more power.
yeah.
Which I mean, it can oversimplify it. I mean, that sounds like an oversimplification in a way.
A little bit. It's
But if it can be broken down to be that simple, people with power want more power.
yeah, it's simple, but it's also true. Um, there's a whole there's stuff that the elites themselves believe about aliens or non-human entities, like telling them to do these things and wanting a technocracy or um, a tyrannical government really planning and controlling everybody. Like the end game to be that most of us are dead and the people that remain are just slaves to this authoritarian government. And so there are a lot of the most powerful people in the world are solely trying to get towards that.
If
But
you want to, I mean, if to take us into full communism, I mean, you would essentially be a slave since your job would be dictated.
yeah, and it's communism. They're kind of like the new communists, where they're doing it instead of doing
Well,
what Hitler did and
it's a
killing people all at once. They're doing it slowly over time and like weakening you over time.
it's a form of corporatism
Mm.
in a lot of ways.
Is it though?
Well, it's the corporations that have the money to do
I
it.
still don't know what you mean by that word corporatism.
Well, the corporatism is when the corporations run things.
Uh,
Isn't that what's happening
corporations
nowadays?
run everything.
YouTube. I mean, the corporations have a huge controlling share in the government.
Well, the government's art is also artificially boosted them up with
They have, and the corporations have their lobbyists handing them money back.
yeah. Well, it's crony capitalism. They're both working together.
It's a loop.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
loop.
yeah. You could say
It's
that
a money loop.
because corporations work in the free market and government doesn't. Corporations are always going to end up being more powerful and having more influence.
Well, corporations have the influence because you have a big company and you want to secure yourself, so you get some favors by the government.
Yeah, well, the government has that illusion of authority that the corporations um, can use
I know
to make themselves.
the word corporatism always sounds dirty to the right.
Well, it's just like it's like it implies or gives me the feeling that you're saying corporations themselves are bad. Um, so I don't know exactly what we say corporatism. I'm always like
You can call it
I don't know
a
confused.
crony capitalism, banana republic.
Yeah.
Take your pick.
Okay. Well, if you say crony capitalism, then that makes sense. Um, that's definitely a conspiracy.
Yeah,
Like,
it can be. That's a conspiracy that you will actually hear from the left a lot.
well,
The,
even
the,
with
the
China,
left. Well, China has a lot of money involved in Hollywood now. Like, what was that robot movie that was around a few years ago?
Transformers.
Transformers. Now it was the other one was another one. I forget the name of it. I actually saw it at the theaters too.
A
I don't know.
robot?
It was a giant robot. It was popular for a month. But in the movie they had Shanghai, I think, getting destroyed at one point. It was only
Oh,
a
it's
quick
Pacific
thing.
Rim?
Pacific Rim. I think it was one of the Pacific Rim movies.
Okay.
Though it could have been Transformers. I won't say exactly which movie because I'm not 100% sure. I read about it a few weeks ago.
Well, Transformers 3, they filmed some of it in China, and that was, I think that was like part of the deal.
Maybe it was Transformers and then I'm having the Mandela effect. But
um,
it was one of those, big monster movies. And they had
yeah.
Shanghai or getting destroyed. It was only a quick cut, going across the world, showing various places getting destroyed, and they had to cut that out because they said, well, China won't like that, and they're helping fund the movie.
Yeah.
There's an
They're
example. There's
also,
an example of it's a corporatism thing going on, right? It's a corporatism thing.
yeah, Twitter and Apple and, well, Twitter is giving them information. A lot of the social media companies
Especially
are,
Google.
yes, yeah, Google.
If China asks them to censor, they censor.
Yes. Um, and and then the Chinese slave workers are making a lot of our goods. And
Which
um,
always deeply disturbs me.
yes, and we're kind of we as the customers to these big corporations are kind of part of that.
I will say that that's a extremely difficult one to avoid
It is.
because I mean it's really hard to find stuff that's not made in China, like especially depending on goods. Like I mean, if you want to go outside China for your clothes, that is really difficult because a lot of times it'll say it's made in Taiwan or something, and the conditions are just as bad.
How can you say that, James? That's a conspiracy theory. You can never keep something like that secret. It would come out, man.
That's not
That
well,
we're all
yeah.
involved in that.
Well, I mean, I see that one talked about a. Well, this is the kind of stuff that I think the left does a much better job on getting out
Hmm.
there. I mean, it's really the left who will care about that a lot more than the right.
Well, they'll still buy things from China, though,
I
like
know,
the
I know,
right.
I know they do. I mean, all of us have that problem. They still buy a new iPhone.
Yeah,
Got to have
exactly.
that
Yeah,
new iPhone.
yeah.
It is hard to buy. Okay, can you even buy a phone not made in China? I don't think it's
I don't think
possible.
so.
And if
Does
it,
I
if it
mean, does
is,
Korea make its own phones? Does Samsung make
well,
its own
this
phones?
Samsung phone right here is made in China.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
That's it. It's very difficult to escape that loop. It is. It's very. I mean, if you want a phone, you have to buy a phone made in China. If it's not made in China, it's made in a factory just as bad somewhere else in some other, small country.
and so even if you're a small business owner and you just want to keep American, you might have to buy a part that's only made in China, right? I know Alex Jones was saying that some like he tried as hard as he could to have every product be made in America.
But at some point, it becomes impossible. It really
At
does.
some point, I think one of their like USB things they had to get from China.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Now, I guess my point is that's literally a conspiracy. It's corporations conspiring with the government, the communist Chinese conspiring with the tech giants, negatively affecting the government, negatively affecting our elections, uh, negatively affecting trade, negatively affecting our jobs. Um, there's conspiracies.
Well, I mean, is it a conspiracy to say that businesses are always looking for the cheapest labor? That's just a fact.
Yeah, right. Now, I guess those aren't the more like those when people think of conspiracy theories, they're talking about the more unbelievable ones or the ones that need more evidence or are just kind of more out there. Um, but you can imagine, I don't know, you can imagine somebody who's super ignorant, like think, no, that couldn't have happened. I mean, you can imagine people in the future, like if we are able to fix a lot of these problems, you can imagine people in the future going, wow, how did they all do that? How is it even possible that they all conspired to do this together? How did Americans still buy products knowing that there was Chinese slave workers over there? Like, but you just put it out of your mind. Everyone's just putting out of their minds now. But
Well,
when
it becomes
communist
if it
China is a thing of the past, in the future, if one day in the future communist China is a thing of the past, and all the residents are free,
and they have a $15 minimum wage.
yeah, it's like you're gonna you're gonna look back and you're gonna be like, how did people put up with this? What did they tell themselves to make this seem okay?
It's become so inconvenient. I just bought speakers. Can I buy a speaker not made under under slave labor? I don't even know. Well,
Yeah.
computer speakers. There actually probably is like big fancy speakers made in America. There probably is. It wouldn't surprise me on the highest
Mhm.
end.
Right.
Of course, I can't afford multi-thousand-dollar speakers.
And so just because it's beyond what you consider normal, just because it's beyond what you don't know, uh, therefore it's stupid, therefore you're going to make fun of whoever believes it. I just think that's dumb. I don't think people should be closed-minded to anything, but conspiracy theories are presenting are if they're true, they're actually dangerous. And a lot of them are true. And there's a lot of dangerous things going on. If we don't do something, if we keep making fun of people who are seemingly trying to warn us, then well, the people perish from lack of knowledge. Um, if if you keep going in conspiracy
Well,
stuff and you see hoax after hoax after hoax and people are doing like Andy Kaufman trolling stuff, then it's like the boy who cried wolf. Then I can understand why you wouldn't believe conspiracy theories after a while because it's like, yeah, I already looked into the last five and they're all not true,
well, how
right?
about we get into one that used to be crazy but is true now? What about Edward Snowden and the NSA and government spying on everybody?
Oh man, that's a big one.
I mean, when we started thinking about all this a decade ago, I mean, that was absolute total insanity to even think about. And now
I
it's known. It's public knowledge now.
I remember I remember this is something that Alex Jones would talk about on his show like 10 years ago, right? Like he would say guys would tech or electricians would come to me and say they're able to process information through the plugs in the walls. Uh, there's hackers that are able to go into your camera, your webcam, and look at you and film you and listen to you. And yeah, people did treat that like it was completely crazy. Now we're all covering our webcams. Now people are watching you through your webcams without you even knowing. There are people on the dark web that watch entire families on the webcam, and they say because it's secret, because the family doesn't know, it's like they can't stop.
Well, yeah, I remember the news article that they hacked into a baby cam. They put it in the room so they can hear their baby in the crib when they wake up. And a guy just hacked into it and started screaming through it.
Um, oh man, that's horrifying. Yeah, we have um we there was that news report where the TV had a camera, or there's some technology in the TV where
Well,
they were like,
it's smart TVs. They have a webcam built in so you can talk, through Skype on your TV or
oh,
whatever.
okay, yeah. So, yeah, that whole news report was like, yeah, the camera's off, the TV's off, and here it is, still filming me. Here I am. Um, Now we're completely surrounded by this technology. Our phones, GPS. Um,
Well, now it's a fact of it. I mean, people all realize this now.
Yes.
Pretty much everybody will believe it to at least some extent.
Yeah. And think about I mean, think about what may you probably know a lot about it. I know you showed me that book where people were talking about cars before they came out, or speculating about vehicles.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was actually cities that were banning them at first. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm just thinking about what did people think before the first vehicle was made, before the first car? Did they always think we'd have horses? Did they always think we have bikes? If somebody came to you and said, "Oh, we're gonna have this like motor thing, like four wheels, like it's not gonna need a horse, it's gonna move on its own."
it was called a horseless carriage.
Okay, but
That's what they were called at first. That's
oh, okay, okay, there you go.
because
No.
the first ones they made was the same exact carriage with an engine in it.
Okay. um, so it's just like
Well, it's a crazy thought to think at first, but well, I don't know. It's a conspiracy. I mean, is that a conspiracy?
no, it's just that people can't see beyond the current
Oh, well, it's
paradigm.
hard to. I mean, it's hard to imagine what is the future internet like. I mean, it's probably going to be virtual reality somehow.
Hmm. But people have a lot of like they don't want to accept fears, but uh they also want to
Well,
be too fearful about some things too.
at first, there were cities that banned horseless carriages.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, think about when the first one came out. You have some guy getting drunk and he's barreling down the road on that.
Oh, okay,
It
yeah,
gets
yeah,
scary pretty fast,
yeah.
especially the first time you witness that happening.
Now everyone drives on the highway like it's no problem.
I know. There's people driving with their phones. There was a dude. There was this dude on a highway today. I was riding down it. There's this guy who was going out of his lane, and I turn around while my dad's driving. I turn around. The guy is looking at the ground. His hands aren't even on the wheel. That's
I think
scary. That's scary,
he's
right?
yeah, he's the kind of guy that laughs at conspiracy theories, but then doesn't get afraid of his doing that.
He actually looked kind of like the alien guy on the History Channel. He had the
mm.
hair, the messed up hair sticking everywhere.
So
Well, but that's a great the best example is Edward Snowden, I think. I mean all of us it's a conspiracy for right. We're crazy. We're covering up a webcam and a couple of our friends were making fun of us for it.
yeah.
But then all of a sudden you wake up one day, oh, it's true. Everybody realizes it.
Oh well, I got nothing to hide, so it's whatever.
What about I don't know if he's still the mayor of Chicago. He might be, but he was talking about putting cameras in everybody's living rooms. That was
See,
mainstream news.
see, knowing the government, that doesn't surprise me. I don't even need to see that article to be willing to accept it
It was quite a long
because
time
it's part of the
ago.
new paradigm. It's part of the new paradigm that governments want to control and watch everything I do. When it wasn't that paradigm, then you just laughed at it. But I don't know. I don't know. We've asked this. Me and you have asked this question before. Like, why are we open into believing some of these things and other people aren't? I still don't really know. Like, what makes some people open-minded and others closed-minded? Is
What
it just
does it?
fear? Is it just not? I mean, what makes someone not curious?
I think we did discuss it in the past somewhat. We talked about how it's partly time. Well, what do you say? It's partly time. We said in the past episode. everybody comes home from work and they don't want to, start doing a bunch of research.
Oh, a time of why they don't want to look into the research.
It's
But
partly time. It's not entertaining to them, I guess.
no, but even just the research, it's like the initial reaction. It's
I
like
know.
me did.
If you were hearing about the government is looking in your webcams and recording your calls, or or just that people are able to very easily. Put it that way. Somebody can very easily. Like, wouldn't that make you want to research? Yeah, right. You would
No,
think
but
the fear would make you want to research
yeah.
rather than not research.
Well, I just remember watching the alien stuff, the alien documentaries on TV. I was completely, I was fascinated and like, oh man, we need to know the truth. And wow, that's incredible. If it's true, we need to know. The government shouldn't be covering it up. And then, or my mom or my dad would just laugh at it or say that's stupid, or just like laugh at me for watching it. And it's like, is there some like personality thing where it's like I need to show that I wouldn't be that stupid to believe something so crazy? Like it's like, is it a virtue signaling thing?
I don't know. It's a good question. Is it a personality type?
It must be.
Is it
It's
mostly
not,
is it mostly INFJs who do it?
probably. INFJs are like they that personality type gets into like deep, like getting into deep
Well,
questions.
I,
And
well, I will say to a certain extent it is fascinating. Though I don't think it's fascinating to research, 9/11 or Sandy Hook. It's pretty gross. Any kind of war crimes is gross
or well,
to research.
vaccines
Vaccines,
too are the
yeah,
worst.
that gets gross. That kind of
Yeah,
stuff. But we still do it. Well, we still do it to a high
Pizzagate.
extent. Ugh,
Ugh.
I don't want to think about that one. I actually got disturbed and stopped looking at it for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Pizzagate is worse than a horror movie.
That definitely affected me mentally when I was looking into it
Remember,
too much.
but even remember like stuff with the Catholic Church. Like you found a book a long time ago that talked about some of the priests, even not just abusing kids, but abusing the nuns.
Yeah, nuns, who, they're workers.
And I was learning about Catholicism and its connection, and it's still having a lot of pagan traditions and pagan beliefs, and uh, the connections with some of the Catholic symbols and the occult, and how it's still kind of the same thing. And so when I saw that, it wasn't too surprising for me because it was part of my new paradigm now that Catholicism is Christianity with a pagan mask, and it's not really like representing Christ or representing God in my eyes anymore. So when I saw that, it's like, okay, well, that's a little more believable to me. And but even like priests abusing nuns in secret in the monasteries or whatever, like even that's like disturbing and like, well, I don't know if it's that bad.
Well,
And now that's mainstream news. It was
yeah, it
just
is.
yesterday that
All
the
of
Pope
it.
was like, "Yeah, that happened. Big deal.
We
Whatever."
were too young for it, but I'm sure there's people talking about priests abusing kids before it came out. I'm sure it was talked about.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's in some conspiracy book from the 70s or 80s. I mean, I saw some on Facebook. I saw someone posted in a group um some Catholic art, like statues and stuff that looked like the priests doing stuff to kids. Uh, I don't know if there's any connection there, but um, that actually be an interesting thing to look into. Like who was warning about what before it became mainstream news?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure.
I wonder how much was actually.
Well, the thing
I
is,
know Alex
back
Jones
when
is.
it came out, the internet was still very young. Because I mean, it came out when I was in. I'm not even sure I was in fifth grade. I think I was in fourth grade when that came out.
Oh, the.
About the priests abusing kids.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
Well,
yeah. It's
I was going to a Catholic school, so it was talked about very much in school. I'm pretty sure it was fourth grade.
right.
So I was quite young. I mean, the internet was still very was still very young at that time.
Hmm.
So to find that out, it probably had to be books, and I'm sure there's books written about it. Probably was.
Well, I know. There's that book that Alex Jones read, "None Dare Call It a Conspiracy." I know. I think that's from the 70s or 80s. Um,
Yeah, well, here's an article I just found. From 2009, the UK government wants to install surveillance cameras in private homes. Talking about it then.
well, was it? Don't they have a lot of cameras on street corners everywhere too?
Oh well, yes, well, especially now. Well, that's true here in America now.
Every street corner?
Well,
Oh, well,
well,
the
I don't know,
traffic
I'm not gonna
cams,
say
yeah.
every street corner, but in big
Yeah,
cities,
yeah,
yeah, there's plenty
yeah.
of them. I'm not gonna go as far as to say
Oh, I
it's
know.
law that it's on
Yeah,
every
yeah,
corner. It's
yeah.
there's plenty of them in big cities, though.
But yeah, that did. I was shocked. I was even shocked. But see, I'm even shocked by that becoming mainstream news that the Pope just says, yeah, there were some nuns that were abused. Yeah, it happened. Where it's this like dark secret on the internet, a book that I would never even want to read or believe. Now even that gets,
Well, that kind
so
of stuff is if you dive deep into it, it's horrific to read about the accounts of it and people describing what happened to them.
well, yeah,
That's a
satanic
horrific
ritual
thing.
abuse.
That's a
Satanic ritual abuse is like the worst.
that's why
Is as bad as it gets.
that's why Pizzagate I had to quit research on that a lot. Oh, it was affecting me bad.
Oh,
When you
yeah.
think about that kind of that's the worst kind of stuff. That's why I say
No,
it's not fun to research that stuff. It's not fun to believe it.
and I don't know if any of those closed-minded people are even listening this long, but like, think about it this way: if they are listening, if that's happening to kids, don't you want to confirm it so you can stop it? Like, don't you want to tell other people so these monsters can be stopped? Like, I mean, the excuses that people make for Hillary, or the excuses that they made for her during that election, when there's a Clinton kill list. They have a kill list. Like they have enough people around them that are dead that connected to them that there should be an investigation.
Well, at some point you have to, it's not a coincidence at some point anymore.
Right. Um and it's yeah, and well that's getting political. I mean people will if it helps them politically, they won't want to find out about it.
No. Spanish authorities consider law to wiretap homes.
We're never going to live in a society like that. That's ridiculous. Um,
That's the thing. It's like after a while, they always seem to just come out, and then it becomes
mhm.
mainstream, and it's like, well, what about when that was a conspiracy?
Exactly. And then they try to make excuses for themselves that they.
I guess people didn't hear about it a lot before the internet. I mean, obviously they couldn't, I guess.
Spread of information, yeah,
The spread of information makes it easier to hear about a lot of them.
that's true.
Then you have the I remember you were saying you read somewhere that the flat Earth coming back was a disinfo thing, maybe.
Okay, so I don't know if people listening know what a disinfo campaign or a psyop is. It's where the government it's not just hard to figure out the truth about the world in general. I mean, you want to find the truth about religion and philosophy and science, and you just want to like learn about things. That's already hard enough. Okay. Then you get into, oh, well, the authorities that you just learned from, they might not be telling the truth or the full truth. So then so that's where the conspiracies come in. They're actually in secret. They're doing this. The truth is actually this. It's like, okay, well, that's a whole nother mountain of information to look into. That's a new whole mountain of information to relearn. Disinfo is where some things are true and some things are true. And it's the government, it's people in the CIA deliberately trying to mislead you. And so they'll put you on red herrings. They'll put you on, like, they'll trail you off into areas that you never needed to go into.
There's the thoughts that that Alex Jones might be a disinfo agent,
right?
Or QAnon.
Yes.
Who's the newest one on the scene?
I've seen. There was one disinfo thing where like this lady was trying to, she was like an actress who was giving herself different pen names, and she was talking about this like 9/11 research, 9/11 truth stuff about these artists that were in the tower before it fell. It was a whole thing, a whole deep rabbit hole I fell down. This lady's like, oh yeah, well, she kept pointing at Israel, that Israel was somehow involved. She kept pointing to Israel in all of her answers and all the evidence that she was presenting. Find out she's like an actress, possibly in the CIA, and she's doing different voices and giving herself different names on different shows, selling like snake oil supplements in one podcast, and then doing the 9/11 stuff by a different name. And all the radio hosts that had her on, they figure out that she's like, well, we had this lady on like she was legit. Turns out she might not be. Turns out this might be a psyop. Like the CIA is deliberately trying to fool us.
Well, touching on the flat Earth one again. So the way that would be a disinfo is for something that people to easily point to as a crazy conspiracy theory, right? It's sort of a distraction.
And it's creating the straw man.
Yeah.
For other people to latch onto.
So this article is from People Magazine. Do you remember back? It was only a few years ago. It was 2017. It was a few years ago. Like a bunch of like B-list celebrities were coming out as believing in flat Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was any major ones. They were like B-list celebrities.
Yeah.
Tia Tequila, Bob the Rapper, George Bernard Shaw. He's actually pretty popular. Sherry Shepherd.
Yeah, it's like people you would never hear about otherwise.
Yeah, well, they're kind of B-list celebrities. A couple of them I knew. Some of them I knew.
Yeah.
But they were coming out to talk about, to believe in it. Well, it was a few. It's died down now a lot, but for like what, 2 or 3 years, it was quite. It was like it exploded.
Like multiple 3-hour-long documentaries on it.
I know, all came out within a year or two.
Just giant mountains of information on one subject in a short span of time.
So that's why that's why we actually looked into it some, since they were there, I guess.
And so and you're saying basically that this is for kind of the I think when people make fun of conspiracy theories, I think they want a virtue signal, and she's like, look at how not stupid I am.
Exactly.
Look at how smart I am that I don't believe this.
And now the thing I hear is that every conspiracy theory is now just go, oh, that's your typical flat earther.
Right. So basically CIA or whatever, they put out the straw mans for those ignorant people to latch onto. To be like, Yeah, they're all like those people. They're all like those
Yes.
people who believe that crazy untrue thing.
Well, the other one is reptilians. Everybody like it when you say Alex Jones, they say, oh, he believes in reptilians. Alex Jones does not believe in reptilians.
No, there's an old clip of Alex Jones going, David Icke, he talks about all this. He talks about the Illuminati. He talks about the one world government. He talks about the New World Order, and then he says, "Oh, and they're all reptilians. It's asinine. It's like orange juice with a little bit of poison in it."
Well, that's true, and I actually do like David. I like to listen to him. He doesn't talk about reptilians that much.
Yeah.
And he had a video about it recently, and when he said reptilians, he was talking about a more new agey spiritual thing. You know what I mean? Like they don't literally have scales and transform into dinosaurs.
And Alex Jones would have him on the show a lot.
He would too back then.
But not to talk about reptilians.
David Icke was on a year ago. Actually, I was surprised. Remember that? I said David Icke came back and they're friends. I was all happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and but I didn't know that David Icke believed in reptilians for a long, long time. But again, Alex Jones is still open-minded enough to have him on the show to talk about stuff that they do agree on, stuff that he is concerned about, to explain his, like, Alex Jones is a Christian, but he has David Icke on to talk about his New Age beliefs or his Buddhism beliefs. And, you know, people call in like, Alex, he's really kind of crazy. So he goes, oh, well, you know, David Icke is still a real person. He has a bleeding heart. He loves people. He's right about some stuff, and I still have him on the show. So, like, but that's one of the most valuable things about Alex and his show for so many years, is that it's been a platform for the most marginalized people who are trying to get a warning out there to go on the show and give their viewpoint, even if he doesn't completely agree. And I don't know. It will forever mystify me why people won't have an open mind and they just want to like laugh at you. I guess it's somewhat understandable. You don't want to believe something's uncomfortable. Then you want to virtue signal that you're cool and you're not. I'm not that dumb to believe something like that, you know. And
it is. It becomes the straw man. Flat earthers and reptilians are straw men.
Yes.
For people to instantly set up.
Now, see, again, I had the reaction when I heard about the flat earth. Like, I just, like, I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to believe this, but let me just look at it to see how they rationalize this. Like, what reasons could they possibly give? And I watched Eric Dubé's. I watched both of his documentaries, hours long.
Yeah,
I couldn't debunk everything in it.
And this was more of a fun thing for us to explore.
Right. It's something we're like, I can't even believe that. We were like, I can't even believe that I would consider this a possibility.
No, and what I was saying back then is that, you know, as crazy as it is, if the entire world was flat, it wouldn't affect your life at all tomorrow.
No, right.
That doesn't matter.
So we stopped caring. Like, we just stopped. Like, I stopped caring whether it's true or not.
It's extremely small chance that it is true.
That's one of those things, and yeah, and that's one of those things where, with when it comes to believing, could you keep that a secret? I don't think NASA can keep stuff like that a secret. Like, I really don't believe that NASA. For you to, it's a giant ask for you to believe that NASA has lied about literally everything in its entire existence.
Hey, well,
I mean, that's what you have to believe.
I guess whenever Elon Musk builds his rocket, he's going to have to send the Flat Earth Society up there.
Or Alex Jones and Eddie Bravo are going to circumnavigate Antarctica.
Yeah.
I mean but that led, even we were like, when we, like, the flat Earth subject led us to the stuff about Antarctica where nobody owns it. Nobody's, you get stopped when you go there. No one's ever fully gone around it.
There is a lot of strange stuff surrounding Antarctica.
Yeah.
Like the people on the panel for it, like what do they even have to do with? They have nothing to do with scientific research, and they have all to say about Antarctica.
Well, in the history of the explorers who went there, where the guy went 7 times, and on his sixth trip, he was like, "Oh yeah, there's a whole nother continent beyond there of natural resources that the whole world could use." And and then he goes back one time. He comes back. He never talks about it again. Um,
And it's the only piece of land that the entire world has agreed that nobody owns.
right. It's very yeah. There's a lot of strange stuff going on out
There
there
is
to think
it
that.
is it's just like yeah it is it's just weird. And then there's Argentina who has a small colony of people that they just have living on total welfare to live there. They have no jobs, nothing. They just live there.
Yeah, yeah,
And they have it so if things went bad, they could claim ownership of the continent. I mean,
yeah.
why would you want ownership of what is essentially a wasteland? You
Right.
can't live there.
There's something going on there. There's something that the government knows about that they're protecting there. That would be the most logical assumption
Here it is.
or conclusion.
I can't pronounce the word. It's Esperanza Base, which is owned by Argentina, and it's a permanent year all around. It's a research station, and but it has a large civilian settlement, at least large for that place.
Mhm.
It's permanent. It's an art of sacrifice. It even has it actually has a school there too.
There's something fishy going on.
It's odd. I mean, there's something more to the place. I mean, nobody owns it, but you can't freely go there. You need all kinds of permission and passports to get there.
And there's
If nobody
also
owns it, shouldn't you just be able to pull up on a boat
yeah,
and walk off? It should be that easy.
I know there should be like festivals down there or something. Those people like, well, anybody can go to it, so but
So we're touching on an hour. We're past an hour and 2 minutes.
okay.
Should we wrap it up, Race? Have you made
Yeah,
our point?
that's another open-ended question. Um, why should you be open-minded to conspiracy theories? Because, well, if some of them are true, it's pretty dangerous, and we need to know. We need to know the truth about some of these things. They're kind of things that affect everything, that affect our future. So, if we don't look into it and do something about it, then we're in trouble. So, people perish from lack of knowledge. If you're not for gaining new knowledge, then you're going to perish. And I just don't like people being ignorant, like willfully ignorant. And it bothers me to think that they like that they just think they know so much that they know that this possibly couldn't be true even when they don't look at into any of the evidence or don't look at it. That's just been bothering me all week. Again, like I was fooled by the conspiracy people on Sandy Hook. I admit it. Like I really did take their claims of self-value that it was completely fake. I never believed in enough to like. I would never go harass the parents or anything like that. That's indefensible.
Well, and
I
Alex
mean,
Jones just stopped talking about it one day, right?
yeah. Well, Paul Joseph Watson saying, "Look, some of these people are saying that you're an Israeli agent. Like they're saying all this other crazy stuff. So you'd have to, after that point, you'd have to start questioning their reasoning skills. Like if they're saying that, then they might be wrong about that other thing. I mean, even
Yeah.
even QAnon, like we can't be fully sure of that too, right? Because he says even that he has to put disinfo in to stop the enemy.
See,
So
some stuff.
that can
Some stuff Q has said did happen, like the Korean summit, the first one.
Hmm.
At this point, it's the first one. So I mean, either I don't know, either QAnon is a white hat, a good guy, or it's a great psyop. It's one of I mean, I personally think that Q there is something real to it. I mean, there is something to Q, whether he's a psyop or he's real.
Hmm.
He he
Oh,
he
well,
he
it's
he, he,
fair.
he is he is certainly not some 12-year-old in his parents' basement, like the haters
No.
say.
Right. It's a little more than a simple ARG. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
someone's if someone is faking it, they're putting a lot of effort in.
Yeah. It is. It's yeah. And it's been going on for a long time at this point. If somebody was faking, you figured they'd get bored and leave by now.
It just would seem it's convenient that he's like, well, some of this is disinfo, so if Q gets anything wrong, they people will be just like, okay, that was a
Yeah.
disinfo.
Yeah. Which that's a kind of side of it I don't like. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to say. I've kind of fallen out of it at this point because I'm focusing on other things in my life.
Yeah, you'd have to. Yeah, you have to. And then the people who like cover it full time, they get mad if it's not a good job. It's like, this is my full time job, bro.
I know.
Give us something better, Q.
I know. Well, those are the Patriots. PAY, as Q puts
Yeah,
it. Those are the Patriots.
the Patriots. Yeah.
Well, it's the same as Arlo getting mad about Nintendo not perfectly balancing their releases for him to have constant
Yeah.
news on,
Right.
right? So some people box their channels into too small of a scope, where they're really dependent on this one source to make videos about.
Not us. We're just doing questions in general. All questions.
We do whatever we feel like.
All questions. Just it's about questions. Period. That's as broad as you can get.
So, but speaking of questions, you can watch us talk about questions every Thursday at around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Some would say we ask the right questions.
We say we ask the right question.
Yeah.
Well, Ray says we ask the right question. I question our questions before every show.
That's true. That's true.
I question if it's the right question.
We'll prepare better next time for most shows.
Well, next week we're going to have to argue about decades.
Maybe.
Ray doesn't want to talk about that when he gets scared when he want to talk about it.
I mean,
is it the right question?
I need to see a chart. I need to see a chart of every year and every decade, and then you got to tell me when trends ended, like and shows ended, and.
I mean, okay, well, okay. We need to have a show. It's not quite that.
Like,
I not listen. Not even I think it's as objective as 90 to 99 is the 90s. But I mean, it's pretty clear cut at 99. The final shows came out. I mean, only a couple lingered afterwards. Only a couple.
I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's because that was my 10 years of growing up. Right? Like, my 10 years of growing up was I started to remember things at 4 years old in 1995. Then I went to high school in 2006.
Well, we discussed it. We discussed. You showed me the charts, and my favorite shows and the ones I remembered the most were started in really early 90s or mid 90s.
Well, we were talking about syndicate. We were trying to end the show.
Then we'll just end the show right here.
Well, we'll just we'll save it for next week. Fine.
Next week. It is next week, right?
I just love to have all the information. Sure. Yes.
Okay. It is.
I would love to have all the information of like when did bell bottoms end in the 70s? Did that come from the 60s or did that go on to the 80s? Like when did people stop wearing bell bottoms?
Well,
and then
according to my dad, people, you know how the 70s are really hated? That happened really fast. He told me it was really fast. That came and went fast. You know, the disco and everything came and went very fast.
So how many years is that? When was the first disco? When was the last disco? I want to know these things. We'll try to get as much facts as we can.
We will. We're going to figure it out. I'm going to ask
Because you
the
got
question.
discos, you got disco is defining the entire 10 years.
So the
and
question is, how fast do trends come and go?
Okay.
I guess something like that.
Yeah,
something
something
like
like that.
Okay, we'll see you all next week.
See